GT with the Vibe Podcast coming at you with another episode, guys. How you doing? My partners have been on vacation in their minds, but we will get them back on next week. Yeah, they've been on vacation. I can't control that. I have nothing to do with that. They're on vacation. We're going to let them do their thing. Two things. One, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate your guys' support. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this. As we're entering our we're concluding, getting toward the back half of Black History Month. I wanted to talk about the racial disparities in the child welfare system. So in the welfare system created in the United States, I want to talk about some disparities. We're going to also take a little bit of a look at some of the issues with crime reform, the bill that basically they say incarcerated mass amounts of African American men, took them out the homes, and so we'll dive into that. We'll get into some facts, and we'll kind of talk about it. I kind of know that line of work a little bit, so I can really speak on it. But we'll start out with welfare, number one. So basically, the welfare system was created it was right after we had our initial market crash of 1929, and then the subsequent Great Depression happened after that. So market crash, people laid off, people don't have jobs. The government had to do something. They had to step in that time frame in order to keep Americans moving, right? So you got to have families that have the ability to buy the things that they need to buy. Kids got to be fed. So they didn't want the stock market crash to affect families' ability to feed kids, people's ability to be able to get the things that they need, especially like care products, things like that. So they came up with the welfare system because of the Great Depression, right? You go through those years, a lot of people lost their jobs with that market crash. Whereas in the beginning of welfare and the welfare system, a lot of nonprofits, religious organizations, state and local government, charitable contributions, those were the entities that took care of the overall welfare system. So they took care of the system in order to keep people going during hard times. So the system was created to keep people going during hard times. And so because of the high levels of unemployment that happened right around that time frame, we're talking in that 1930, 1940 time frame. So we're getting the Great Depression. We're starting to come out the back end of it, and so unemployment was still high, and the problem was that the organizations that were taking care of these benefits were running dry. They didn't have enough money to be able to keep up with the demand. So you guys understand supply and demand. The demand is high, but the supply was low. So therefore, they had a problem. They had an issue. And so in 1935, Roosevelt used the term New Deal under the notion some Americans had been dealt a bad hand. So he came up with a proposal, and they called it the New Deal. In the mindset of poker, they were just dealt a bad hand. So they are not eerily responsible for the situation that they found themselves in. So the stock market crashes, Great Depression happens. That is not because of these individuals that are struggling. That is because we had some market issues, right? There's some market issues on the business side with the higher-ups that played into that crash. So he's saying we cannot put this onus on the individuals that are struggling. So the government took charge. He argued that it was something that the government can change. So in 1936, there's 162,000 families on welfare or receiving some type of benefits or support from the government. And that's 1936. So fast forward 30 years. In 1969, that number was up to almost 1.9 million families. So during that 30-year period, there was a lot more families that fell into poverty than there was prior. So what causes the welfare system to be utilized the way it is they're looking at the amount of families that fall into poverty. These are families where kids can't eat, right? That was the goal, that was the mindset behind the welfare system, is we don't want kids to go hungry, right? We don't want families to not be able to get the essentials. And so they looked at it, and they did some tests in the late 1960s, early 1970s, and they said families of color were largely left out or actively blocked from the policy. This created a bigger gap. So there's already a wealth gap. So you had slavery. African Americans got out of slavery, became free, got a lot of the lower end jobs, right? So we're not getting the jobs that pay the big bucks. We're getting the lower end, the labor jobs, because that's all we did inside slavery. So as African Americans inside the slavery system, we did jobs that were primarily about hard manual labor. So that's what we knew. So when you get free, when you come outside of slavery, you get to the other side, you continue to do what you've been doing because that's what you know. So as African Americans, that's what we knew. So that is exactly what we did. And so there's already a gap. There's already a wealth gap. Because when we were brought over from Africa, we didn't have anything. We still didn't have anything through slavery. So we didn't get to earn anything through slavery. We didn't make any monetary money. We didn't get anything. We didn't get any benefits or nothing through slavery. So we backboned it, helped build parts of America. We didn't get anything for that. So there's already a gap there from the jump. When you come with nothing and you get nothing, you continue to have nothing. And so now the welfare program creates a bigger gap because black families were excluded from the ability to be able to have those benefits. So in the 1970s, early 1970s, politicians were battling about welfare, right? There were African Americans that were getting it. They coined the phrase welfare queens to describe single mothers, mainly of African American descent. So they coined the phrase welfare queen. So that's where the mindset of welfare queens came from, was the 70s, as politicians put that out there. And what you'll learn over time is that politicians put a lot of things out there in order for them to push whatever agenda that they're trying to push. And so they pushed that out there, and they were talking about welfare queens, and that's the phrase that they gave African American female single moms, right? So, and we're talking 1970s. So I'm going to write that down. Keep that in mind. 1970s, there were a lot of single moms, single African American moms. So black men were already not inside the home as we get closer to talking about that crime bill. Remember that 1970s, we're already talking about this. I'm going to write that date down real quick because that's an important date to remember. So they were claiming that African American females, the welfare queens, were manipulating the system in order to get over on the government's benefits that were being brought out. After they looked into it, there was a low level of welfare fraud. So welfare fraud was low, but they're saying that black women that are getting this assistance are actually just tricking the system. Interesting for them to say that. So, in 1992, so we'll fast forward 20 more years, a couple more decades. By this time, I was born in 89. So, in 1992, Clinton's bill in 1992, the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, gave states control of welfare. So, in the 90s, in the early 90s, states took control of the welfare system. It was more centralized to the states, where it was the government overall in the beginning. Now it's the states. So the government sends funds to the states. The states regulate it however they see fit, right? And so what they did with this is, within that act, they added a work requirement for aid. So it effectively shrank the number of adults who could qualify for these benefits from the government. So in that act, they said you have to have certain amount of work hours per week to get these benefits. So they required work. Some of you agree with that, some of you don't. I agree with that. I think that you should work. You should be able to provide some of that and not just get all of that. I don't think it should be just completely, because most people that are out of work, that aren't working, are making a choice not to work. Because if you're out of work because you're injured, there's programs for that, right? If you're out of work because you can't work at all, because you're injured or something happened to you, there are programs for that. Now, if you're out of work because you don't want to work, or you don't want to go find a job, or you don't want to work a certain specific type of job, you don't want to work at McDonald's, so you're just going to be out of work and just collect benefits, Those are the type of people that cause issues within this system. That's the reason why they added that requirement, because they wanted people to actually be trying to get jobs. You push people into the job market, right? And that assists in growth. If you keep people from the job market, it's hard to assist in growth. We all know business. Most of us out here know business. We know how business works. People have to be working in the business for the business to continue. And so what they were trying to do is push people back out into the workforce. And so they added that requirement. And so they also created a cap on how much aid a person can get. So they put caps on. They were like, hey, we can't go over this amount of money. Because I think prior to that, it was kind of, it could be used in excess. And so what happens is you use these funds in excess. Over time, you create a bubble, and eventually the bubble gets too big. Now that the bubble's too big, the bubble bursts. So now the bubble's burst, and now that next generation has to deal with those consequences. So in the 90s, the economy was good. It was doing good. The economy was booming. We haven't been back to those type of numbers since the 90s. So in 2008, bloop, crash again. So the financial crisis of 2008 caused 1.5 million more families. So we're already pushing 2 mil. Now you add another 1.5 million on top of that. They dropped below the poverty line. So everything that they're talking about is based on the poverty line. They're looking at the poverty line. How much does a person have to make to be able to sustain a certain lifestyle? And so in 2008, 1.5 million more families go below the poverty line. So they did not adjust for inflation. So when you had it in the 90s and they were doing the welfare system, they did not adjust their numbers for inflation. And so welfare benefits didn't really cover what they needed to cover, what they were meant to cover, because you have to understand that life has gotten more expensive. So if life's getting more expensive, so let me get my hands together here. So if you're going this way, and this is how much money you're getting in welfare, but life's getting more expensive, we're doing like this. So that's essentially what happened in the 90s into the 2000s, into the 21st century, is that inflation happened. They did not figure out a way to keep everything in the balance. And so with that lack of adjustment, that caused more gap in these benefits. And when you think about these benefits, we know the majority of people that get these benefits are going to be African American. We know that. I know that as a black man. Everybody else out here watching that's African American, we all know that the majority of these benefits go to black family homes, black homes. So in 2012, 52.2 million people were on some form of assistance. That's 1 in 5 Americans. 20% of Americans were on some type or some form of welfare assistance in 2012. So now the market has crashed again. So we've gone, I wouldn't compare it to the Great Depression, but it's similar, it's a similar instance. Housing market crashes, markets just crash. I mean, we were in dire straits then. So at that point in time, 1 in 5 Americans, 20% of America, is on some type of benefits. And so we look at the welfare system, we look at how it was built. I know people are think that it's super hard to find a job out here, but if you're getting assistance and you get the opportunity to get a job, just get a job. It don't matter what the job is, start somewhere. And I think that the mindset was, oh man, I want this, or I want to do this. And I think that people do get lazy. I 100% do. And the problem is that the people that are lazy, that abuse the system, cause problems for the people that actually need it. There are people that actually need this. There are people that are working and not making enough money that need this. Then you got people who don't want to work, and so they just suffocate the system. So how does that correspond with the crime bill? Well, we're going to talk about that. So in 1994, the Violent Crime Control Law Enforcement Act, right? Title II, provided grants, incentives, and the opportunity to build correctional facilities to qualified states that enforce mandatory sentences of 85% of a person's sentence, right? 85% of, so if you're convicted to 100 years in prison, instead of getting off with 50, you had to go 85. They had to put you in for 85 to get benefits. So what that in turn did is that caused a problem where now people are getting convicted of crimes, and it won't even have to be a violent crime, and they're getting time that they shouldn't be getting. They're not getting the opportunity for the lower sentences. Whereas before that, jails weren't overly populated, and so they weren't getting a whole lot of the big time. Oh, I'm going to put you in there for 100 years for some drugs or some crap like that. So that's what happened. But in 1994, a Gallup survey that was taken showed that 58% of African Americans supported that crime bill. Right? Why did they support that crime bill? Well, because most of the crime, the high violent crime, was happening in black neighborhoods. So yes, black people would support a bill that would, in hopes, curb the crime wave that was going on inside black communities. Because most of the crime, I'll admit it as a black man, most of the crime was happening where I lived at when I was younger. When I was younger, the street that I lived on, there are bullet holes in the dang tree stump outside my mom's house, my mom's old house. I lived, and most people on my block were black. We can go ahead and state facts there. We don't have to sit here and beat around the bush. Most of the people on my block were African American. Most people around us, around our blocks, are African American. Super high crime. Drive-bys, murders, all that happened inside our community. And so black people were for the bill. The black people no longer wanted to live in a community where there's super high crime rates, super high crime violence. Like, there's a lot of violence going on. You might get shot just by walking outside. Those are the communities that we're living in, and we were sick of it at that time. So in the mid-1990s, black people were sick of it. We'd gone through years with the epidemic of crack going on in our neighborhoods, people strung out, people killing each other over some crack rocks. We were over that stuff. So when they took the survey, black people were like, let's go with it. 49% of white people, 49% of white people on this poll said that they were for it. So more white people were against it than black people. Coin that. Keep that in your mindset. Keep that in your head. And so this is 1994. We were talking about welfare queens, single moms, the majority African American in the 1970s. They were single family homes without the men. Where do you guys think the men were? I'll let you guys guess. So, most African Americans cited high crime in those times, in those areas, because that's where we were living at. Because of the poverty line. So, because of poverty and because we came to America with nothing. America didn't give us nothing. And with the welfare system being so more geared towards Caucasian people, we were stuck in these communities where crime was rampant. And crime happened because people didn't have nothing. So people were robbing, stealing, killing to try to get something. They were trying to get something. And so with the funding and the police to enforce in high crime areas, we're targeted. Like, I think we have to understand, you're not going to go to Bel Air targeting crime. You're not going to go there. There's not a whole lot of crime that happens there. You're not going to go to the gated community where you have to have a damn code to get in to target crime. So I think that what we have to do as black people, we have to understand, and part of our problem is we say that the system, that the law enforcement system is against us because they're targeting us. No, they're targeting where we live. Look around where you live at and ask yourself the question, is there high crime? The majority of us will say yes. So are they targeting the right area? Probably, yeah, they are. Ain't no other way we could spin it. I mean, we could sit here and play victim all day, every day, but ain't no other way we could spin it. They're targeting crime where crime is happening. So if crime is happening in your neighborhood and it's high, they're going to be in your neighborhood. Because the goal of law enforcement is to reduce crime. So you're not going to go reduce the little bit of crime. You're going to go where there's a lot of crime and try to reduce it there. And so I think that the mindset that we have of, man, we just fall victim to all this, and this. We have to understand where we live at. You choose to live in an area where people get shot and killed all the time. It's going to be heavy police presence. I mean, that's just what it is. And I think that somewhere along the line, we stopped being logical thinkers as African Americans and started being what I like to call victim thinkers, where the media or somebody can feed us something and we can't think for ourselves. So the media thinks for us and tells us, plants a seed, and says, you guys are being targeted. They didn't target me because I wasn't doing nothing to be targeted. I was going home, going to school, going to work. That's it. I didn't do nothing to be targeted. I lived in those communities, but I never felt targeted because I never had to deal with them. They never showed up on my doorstep looking for me because I never did nothing stupid. So they gave more funding to try to curb crime. Now, where this bill failed, I feel like, is in the issue is that now you're giving mandatory minimums, but you also took out and had a war on crack. So cocaine is the drug. It's the big heavy liar drug. People would be caught with cocaine and get misdemeanor charges, whereas if you had the crack, the watered down cocaine, the crack, so you had the crack, you get a little crack rock, right? You're looking at 5 years for some crack. Whereas it would take you a whole lot of cocaine to get those same 5 years in prison. Who do you think was buying the crack? I'll let you guys guess. Who do you think is buying it? It's cheaper, so who do you think is going to buy the crack? People that don't have the money to buy cocaine. Who do you think is buying cocaine? Rich people. So rich people are doing cocaine, snorting off their freaking counters at home. And people were mad because police weren't kicking those doors in. When you can't just go kick a door in for no reason. Like, you have to have a reason to go kick that door in. And so they pushed on the crack cocaine epidemic. So now crack is like that drug, right? It's cheaper than coke. A lot of people have it, and they're giving out big time sentences for it. There's a guy that got 55 years in prison for having a pound of marijuana and a gun. 55 years in prison. That's a lot for some damn marijuana. And so I think that those issues happen because judges they had to make decisions that they probably wouldn't normally make under complete clear circumstances. They may have been a little bit more lenient. Hey man, this guy don't have a whole lot of history. Okay, I'm gonna give him the lower end of that, right? But because you had to give 85%, people got higher terms for crimes that were nonviolent. Even though the crime bill was more so to enforce violent crime, they were trying to get violent crime down, and the crimes against women, that was huge. And so they're trying to curb those, but it had unintended consequences of causing an issue in some of the other crimes where there's not a whole lot of violence involved. Is there violence around drugs? Absolutely, yes, there is. 100%. 100%. Even today, there's a lot of violence around drugs. Kids kill each other over marijuana. So, yes, there's violence around drugs. Drugs do cause violence. I think at the end of the day, you have to see that for what it is. And so I think that, in closing, that the starting line was pushed further back. And so we've struggled to catch up. And now we're here, right? Now we're here. Now we're at this point in time where we struggle to catch up. Now we're here. What do we do next? Yes, some of the things that have happened over the years in government and state officials, elected officials, and all that jazz has definitely caused us to have to lose a leg in the race. Yes, we lost a leg. I won't lie. Nobody can tell me otherwise that we didn't lose a leg. I think that we definitely did lose a leg in the race. And so we have to understand that for us to get where we're trying to go, we have to come in community together. Because even when they had Black Wall Street got burnt to heck down, that was an opportunity. That was black people trying to build their own. And I think ever since day one that we've come here, we've always been trying to build something our own, right? And so, and I don't knock that mindset. I like that mindset. I think that mindset is good. But I think if we have the majority of us that are allowing the government to pay for our stuff, we're not out here trying to hustle and get it ourselves, right? We're not out here trying to hustle. And people do abuse the system. Let's be honest. People do abuse the system. I don't think we can lie about that. We can be honest on this show. That's what the vibe is all about. And so we can be honest about that. People do abuse the system, 100%. I believe that there are people out there that abuse the welfare system. Yes, there are. They give a bad rap to those who don't, right? They give a bad rap to those who don't. And so I think that we have to hold each other accountable, but we also have to push each other to be better, to do things differently. Understanding that what we've been doing don't work, so let's change it up. Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, they call that insanity. You're insane. Let's not be insane. Let's be intelligent. Let's be smart, right? Let's make better decisions as African Americans out here. The system obviously did have some issues. Yes. We've been affected marginally by the system. But we've also been affected marginally by our mindsets. When you walk around and act like somebody owes you something and they don't want to give you something, you're just going to continue walking around an empty hand. At some point, we got to go get our own. Put something in our own hands. Maybe one day they'll give you something. Maybe. I don't know. Can't count on it. I wouldn't count on it personally. I wouldn't count on the government to give us anything. America was built basically on slavery. I mean, you kick the Indians out, put them in reservations, and said, you guys have to stay in this area. Then you bring black people over to build railroads and all that jazz. So, I mean, the infrastructure in America was built by slavery, essentially. And we know that. But we have to understand that we're in a different time now. We have the opportunity as black people to do things that we weren't able to do back in the day. They fought for this opportunity. We can't squander the opportunity that was given to us. So that's the wisdom of my part to you guys. We can't squander the opportunity that was given to us by our ancestors. They went out there, died, got beat down. They got their dignity was lost. Right? Like the Caucasians back in the day did not give a damn about your dignity. Was lost. And now today, we got the opportunity and we won't take it. So my advice to you is take it. Push, take it. Whatever it takes. Don't allow the system to tell you what you need to do. You make the right decisions and get where you're trying to go. If you like our stuff, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, share, help us get the word out there. As we continue to grow, we continue to grow with you guys. We continue to understand what your guys' needs are. We're here for you. We're the voice of reason, the voice of consistency. We're the voice of real. We're not out here trying to beat around the bush around here. So this is GT with the Vibe Podcast. I'm out.